2015, in connection with the defendant's plea to conspiracy to commit burglary of a dwelling in count 3. Sentencing was set for today. I've had a pre-sentence investigation report prepared, which I have reviewed. Mr. Camp, have you reviewed that with your client, and what corrections, if any, do you wish to make?
No corrections that we have reviewed.
All right. I'll hear anything from the defendant, Mr. Camp.
Your Honor, we provided the court with some letters. We just asked for the members of the court.
All right, I have reviewed both of the letters that you have provided me, and I will take them into consideration. Anything from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. As this was a guilty plea and no trial was had, the court may not be aware of some of the facts surrounding this case and the crime for which the defendant pled guilty, so we would ask to call a witness and possibly introduce some evidence for the court to consider.
All right, that'll be fine. Mr. Camp, you and client can have a seat at council table. Who's going?
State the call, investigator Chuck Harrison.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Have seen the extremely good result of the microphone.
May it please the court.
Next seat.
Would you state your name for the record?
Chuck Harrison.
And are you an investigator with the Madison Police Department?
Yes.
And how long have you been a sworn law enforcement officer?
21 years.
How long have you been an investigator?
10 years.
Okay. Did you have an occasion to be an investigator on this case with Clayton Kelly?
Yes.
And also there were other people indicted and involved in this case, is that right?
Yes.
John Mary was one of them?
Correct.
And Richard Sager was another?
Correct.
And Mark Mayfield was another?
Correct.
In the course of your investigation of this, did you have an ability to review Facebook messages of all the defendants?
Yes.
And the Facebook messages that you reviewed, John Mary was one of them?
Correct.
He goes by John Burke on the Facebook messages, is that right?
Yes.
Got my post with it. You mind?
I'm handing you a packet of papers. Would you look through that? Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Can you tell the court what it is?
These are a large part of the private conversations and messages back and forth between all the co-defendants or defendants in this case through their private instant messaging on their Facebook accounts.
All right, Your Honor, at this time we would move to introduce that as an exhibit to this hearing.
Objection.
Objection.
I move the state for one.
All right, investigator, the Facebook messages that you have there, tell me who all was involved in those Facebook messages.
Throughout these, it was John Mary, a.k.a. John Burke, Richard Sager, Clayton Kelly, and Mark Mayfield.
Okay? And can you give me a time frame of when this conspiracy started, when it
It began at the beginning of February of 2014 and progressed into the end of April 2014.
in the course of your investigation, did you subpoena phone records of all the defendants?
Yes.
Did you compare them?
Yes.
And in the course of your investigation, did you have an opportunity to speak to any defendants that you Mirandized and they willingly gave you a statement?
Yes. We spoke to the defendant in the courtroom, Clayton Kelly.
How about the others?
The others, John Mary and both Rick Sager were also interviewed.
And they gave you permission to access their Facebook accounts, is that right?
Yes.
How about their computers?
Yes.
you review all of the information that you received from all of those sources?
Yes.
All right. Now, you indicated that you had an interview with this defendant, Clayton Kelly. Was it videotaped at the time?
Yes.
And you were present, he was Mirandized, correct?
Yes.
And are you aware that a transcript, a partial transcript was prepared of your interview with Clayton Kelly?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to review the transcript against the video?
Yes.
Gentlemen, approach the witness. Handing you several pages stapled together, would you review that and tell the court if you recognize it?
Yes, this is the transcript of the interview that I was involved in with the defendant Clayton Kelly.
Your Honor, at this time, we move to introduce that as State's Exhibit 2 as an exhibit to this hearing.
Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor.
Admitted as State's 2.
Investigator, do you have a copy of that on your own?
Yes.
Would you please hand the State's Exhibit 2 to the court so you can follow along the court? All right, I'd like to refer you to the bottom of page 2, where it's entitled Kelly. Is that the defendant?
Yes.
And this is what he was saying on the video, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, I'd like to read it and tell me if I read it correctly, okay? Kelly, they just told me there is, he said if you go all the way down, the last building on the left, you'll see her building. He said, there, just coattail behind somebody, and the locks aren't there to keep you out there. They're here to keep these people in. Go to the second floor, and she's right there on the left. And I didn't realize, I should have realized even more, when after I took the picture, I was sick to my stomach, and I'm still debated on even putting it out. And then that's when the other information would be released on Twitter. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm missing my chance to break this and become the journalist I want to become. And I did. And it took someone else's comment saying this is wrong for me to say this is wrong. What am I doing? All I could think about was Rose. This is, okay, she's in such a vulnerable position. What am I doing? Because I don't care what this motivation or that motivation, or even if it was money. Rose was, in my point of view, was being exploited, and it wasn't my place to do that. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
So was he showing some remorse for doing this?
Yes.
But he still put the video out.
Yes.
Right. Now, let's talk a little bit about February to April. You said that's the time frame that this conspiracy took place?
Yes.
Based on your analysis of the phone numbers, the Facebook messages, talking to co-defendants, and looking at their computers, give the court a brief overview of how this conspiracy started, grew, and culminated.
It began in the beginning of February where Rick Sager and John Barry, a.k.a. John Burke, were originally talking back and forth about trying to expose an alleged affair that was taking place between Senator Thad Cochran and his assistant, Kay Weber. As this progressed, they were eventually introduced to Clayton Kelly, the defendant, who was known to be a videographer to some extent, somewhat of an up-and-coming journalist. At that point, the three of the defendants, Rick Sager, John Mary, and Clayton Kelly, began discussing that they were having a hard time finding a current photo that they were satisfied with, that they wanted to try and use in a video they wanted to produce and put out to expose this alleged affair. After some time of not being able to find a photograph that they were satisfied with, then the discussion turned to, well, how do we get this photograph or get a photograph? Through their own research, they were able to determine that Rose Cochran was a resident of St. Catherine's Village in the city of Madison.
Okay, just so I'm clear, they wanted a current photograph of Rose Cochran to show that the person in the other photographs with the senator was not Rose Cochran, but was in fact Kate Weber.
Correct.
Okay, so they discovered she's at St. Catherine's Village. What happened next?
At this point, they began the discussion, how are we going to get this photo? At the time, it was known by at least one defendant, John Mary, that Mark Mayfield, who was known to him, had a mother who was residing in St. Catharines. So they made contact with, reach out to Mark Mayfield for assistance in trying to get into St. Catharines and how to go about obtaining disposal. Initially, between John Mary and Mark Mayfield, there was a little bit of discussion about Mark Mayfield doing it himself, but he made a comment in one of the conversation that he wasn't able to commit to do that himself, but that he could get someone in if they found somebody that would be willing to do so. At this point, when the conversation, you can see that John Mary had made contact with Clayton Kelly in reference to being willing to do this. Clayton Kelly agreed to do this, and then they began working with Mark Mayfield on the details of the layout of the facility, and eventually, which did progress to Clayton Kelly going to St. Catharines and taking this photograph.
Okay, so it started out, they wanted to put a video together to show that Senator Cochran was allegedly having an affair with Kay Weber, is that right?
Correct.
From there, it progressed to, let's find the current photograph of Rose Cochran, but we can't find one. Where is she? She's in St. Catharines Village.
Correct.
And from there, finally, it progressed to, let's get a picture of Rose Cochran in the present so that we can put this in the video. Is that right?
Correct.
And eventually, Clayton Kelly did go into St. Catharines and obtain a video or photograph of Rose Cochran, correct?
Yes.
And have you seen that video?
Yes.
All right. All right, before we get to the photographs, investigator, you said that you spoke to Richard Sager and John Merritt, is that right? They cooperated and gave you statements? Yes. Handing you two documents. Do you recognize those?
Yes, this one here on top is the handwritten statement that was provided by John Mary,
Okay.
and the second is a formal document affidavit of the interview related to Rick Sager and his admission to his involvement.
Did you see those previously?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time we would move to introduce those as states 3 and 4 as exhibits to this hearing.
Any objection?
Objection.
They've been admitted to states 3 and 4.
Our investigators, states exhibit 3 and 4 essentially are the statements wherein John Mary and Rick Sager admitted to the conspiracy and the conspiracy of the other co-defendants in participating in the break-in of Clayton Kelly. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Do their affidavits and statements accurately reflect what your investigation revealed?
Yes.
How many times did Clayton Kelly go to St. Catharines Village to obtain a photograph?
A total of 3.
A total of 3 times. Was he successful in any of them?
The first 2 attempts, he was not successful. The third and final attempt was when he was able to obtain a photo.
All right. And could you see them planning this in the Facebook messages?
Yes, there was multiple conversations going throughout.
And you said he was unsuccessful the first 2 times. Why was he unsuccessful?
The first attempt, there was some sort of a viral outbreak within the facility, and they were not allowing anyone other than staff to come in.
Okay.
And the second attempt, he went on a following Sunday. There was very little traffic, as far as what I mean by traffic, or other visitors, family coming in and out, so he didn't feel comfortable trying to get in. At that point, he felt like he could stand out. And the third attempt was on Easter Sunday, where it was a high traffic area, a lot of traffic, people coming and going, and he was able to successfully get in and out at that point.
Okay, so you said there was a lot of traffic or talking back and forth amongst conspirators about planning these dates?
Yes.
And you said the last one was planned for when?
Easter Sunday, 2014.
Was that intentional?
Yes.
And you're basing this off of the traffic that you read?
Specifically, the conversations between the 3 going on as to when the best day would be. His involvement was, as I stated, he communicated with both John Mary and Clayton Kelly. John Mary initially brought Mark Mayfield into this situation, and Mark Mayfield had the knowledge of where Ms. Cochran was at, how to get straight to where her room was at, the procedures to get in and out of the doors, being that it was a secure facility, not just anyone was able to just freely walk into the building, so he knew, he had an idea how they could work it out to where Clayton could get in.
Okay, this isn't conjecture, this is evidence, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Your Honor, that goes with us. You may.
Investigator, I handed you 3 photographs. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
Would you please tell the court what each photograph is?
The first photograph on top is a photograph that they had found on being John Mary, Rick Sager, and Clayton Kelly during the research they found on the internet. This was the only one they could find, and it was clear that they conversed about it. They were not having any luck finding anything other than this one small photograph.
And it appears to be a photograph of the senator and Rose
And
Cochran.
Rose Cochran, I'm not sure what the date would have been on this, when this photograph was taken.
Does it appear to be taken some time ago?
Yes.
Okay, what's the next photograph?
The next photograph is a still shot of the nameplate just outside the room of Rose Cochran. It's at St. Catherine's, where it shows her room number and has her name on the doorway.
All right, the final photograph, what is that?
The final photograph is the still shot that was used, that Clayton Kelly took with his phone to put into that video that was then put out onto YouTube.
Those 3 photographs, where did you obtain them from?
These 3 photographs were recovered from the laptop belonging to Clayton Kelly by forensics. The FBI's computer lab recovered this off one of his laptops.
Your Honor, at this time, we would move to introduce those photographs, the states 5, 6, and 7, as exhibits to this hearing, and ask that Exhibit 7, while these others may be public because we're admitting in evidence, we would ask that the photograph of Rose Cochran be under seal.
Any objection?
Objection.
All right, those will be admitted as states 5, 6, and 7, and clerk will need to seal as 7.
All right, finally, Investigator Harrison, he went in and got this photograph or video of Rose Cochran, correct?
Yes.
Was the video actually produced?
Yes.
And based on your investigation, who produced it?
Clayton Kelly did that.
And was there a narration in the video?
Yes.
And whose voice was on the narration?
Clayton Kelly the defendant.
And who posted it on?
Clayton Kelly the defendant.
All I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Camp?
Just a few questions.
All right.
Yeah, John Mary and Rick Sager gave statements to you, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, did Clayton give statements to you?
Yes.
And in fact, who gave statements to you first?
Clayton Kelly.
And Clayton cooperated with you, I think, from the get-go, is that correct?
Yes.
He gave you all his passwords that you asked for to his computers.
Correct.
He gave you all his emails to all these individuals, correct?
Right.
And he gave you that information before, I guess, you had arrested John Mary or Rick Sager, is that correct?
Correct.
And he cooperated with you every time you asked him, he cooperated.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And he took responsibility and told you what he had done when you had arrested him, is that correct?
Yes.
No further question.
You follow up?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Who would the state call that?
The state would call from the podium Clayton Cochran to address the court briefly.
Did he need to swear?
That's Your Honor.
Clayton County. And I'm here as much to mourn my mother as to condemn anybody who perpetrated the crimes that have been discussed. She was a lovely woman, and we miss her, and she lives in our hearts, will for forever. And that these proceedings may clear our conscience and everyone else's. To that end, we are appreciative.
All right,
Thank you.
anything further from the state?
That's all the state we have, Your Honor.
Can't be anything in the vote?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Y'all, we'll come back to the podium. What's the $4? All right, I'll make this observation. Much, if not most, of what Investigator Harrison testified to is contained in the pre-sentence investigation report that has copies of the statements, I think, that he testified about, and I have reviewed that report. The defendant, in his statement to the authorities, did show remorse in relation to what he did, although that's not necessarily uncommon for a defendant in custody to do that. And I want everyone to keep in mind this defendant is being sentenced for conspiracy to commit the burglary, not for the commission of the burglary. And in that regard, I took the opportunity to review the files for Richard Sager, who was placed on pretrial intervention in relation to the crime of conspiracy to commit burglary of a dwelling. I also reviewed the file of John D. Mary, who was placed on non-adjudication in relation to the crime of posting messages through electronic media for purpose of causing injury to any person. It appears that the instigator of these events was Defendant Mary, with possibly the assistance of Defendant Sager. And as I have said many times before, in particular in relation to armed robbery, the defendant who goes into the place of business to commit the armed robbery generally is the least intelligent of all, because the others have convinced that defendant to do that. I believe that in the totality of the circumstances, this defendant probably fits into that category. That's not saying that he's not responsible for his crimes. And in fact, had he not done what he did, probably nothing else would have come to this. So he had a responsibility to not do what he did, but he chose to do that. I have seen in the statements, for lack of a better word, his assertion that he was by his wife in her statement given to the authorities that simply was, I told him it was a stupid idea, that it was just plain wrong. I'm not going to talk about the political activity that was going on during all of this, but there has to be a line that you don't step over. And again, he's not pled guilty to the burglary, but he's pled guilty to the conspiracy. And doing what he did in furtherance of that conspiracy, going into St. Catherine's to take that photograph of a certainly innocent lady, just was no better put than what his wife said, and that is, it was a stupid idea that was just plain wrong. I can't imagine anyone that has a loved one in that situation that would want a picture taken like that, who would not have a strong reaction to it. And Mr. Kelly, I suspect you wouldn't want a picture taken of your loved one like the one that you took with you.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, having said that, I realize that the maximum sentence is 5 years. And in handing down that sentence, as I've said many times, I am charged with doing the right thing, or succinctly stated, being fair and handing down an appropriate sentence. And I am somewhat guided by the fact that this defendant's co-defendants were placed on pretrial intervention and non-adjudication. But the difference was with them that they were not prior convicted felons. And I think that does weigh against this defendant in that regard. And there was just absolutely no excuse or justification for your behavior, Mr. Kelly. That being said, it will be the order of the court defendant be sentenced to a term of 5 years in custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. Going to order that he be released after he served the first 2 years and 6 months and placed on 2 years and 6 months post-release supervision. Further order that he pay court cost fees and assessments in the amount of $1,898